Ethan woke up on Valentine's morning with a flutter in his chest, excited to spend a special day with Lily, his girlfriend of nearly 2 years, who had been working tirelessly for weeks and clearly needed a break. But as soon as he glanced at her across the small kitchen table, he noticed her hands shaking slightly as she scrolled through her phone, and a shadow of worry darkened her usually bright eyes, something he couldn't ignore no matter how hard he tried to convince himself it was just nerves. And when he finally asked her what was wrong, she hesitated, chewing her lower lip, the kind of hesitation that made Ethan's heart twist, and then, in a rush of words that tumbled out almost faster than she could control, Lily explained that she had received a strange message from Chloe, her best friend since college, someone Ethan had never met but had heard about countless times through Lily's excited stories of past adventures. Chloe's message claimed she wanted to test Lily's loyalty to him, suggesting in a way that sounded casual but carried an unsettling edge that Lily couldn't fully ignore, and Ethan's stomach sank, his mind spinning with questions he didn't want to ask out loud for fear of sounding accusatory. Because he trusted Lily, he truly did, yet the idea of a loyalty test planted a seed of unease that wouldn't easily go away, and Lily's voice wavered as she described how Chloe insisted it was just a harmless game, a way to see how committed Lily really was. But the more Lily spoke, the more Ethan felt that this wasn't harmless at all, that something about Chloe's tone and the pressure she applied, even subtly, was manipulative, a kind of emotional trick that could twist hearts if someone wasn't careful. And Lily's hands tightened around her mug as she admitted she felt confused, guilty, and a little trapped, not because she wanted to hurt Ethan, but because she didn't know how to refuse Chloe without feeling like she was betraying her friend. And Ethan reached across the table instinctively, taking her hand in his, feeling the warmth of her skin and the tremble beneath it, and for a moment he thought about saying something reassuring, about telling her that loyalty tests were ridiculous, that love shouldn't need proof like that, but then he stopped, because Lily's eyes were full of so many emotions, fear, guilt, and even a hint of doubt that she didn't mean to feel, and he realized that his words could either comfort or make it worse. So he stayed silent, squeezing her hand gently and letting her speak more if she wanted, and Lily took a deep breath, explaining how Chloe had framed the test as an opportunity for Lily to show Ethan that he was her priority, that she truly loved him. And Ethan felt a pang in his chest, because while he knew Lily loved him, the idea that someone else had to approve that love or measure it in a game felt infuriating, yet he couldn't show anger, not now, not while Lily's face was pale and her eyes glimmering with unshed tears. And so he nodded slowly, encouraging her without saying the wrong thing, and Lily continued, telling him that Chloe's instructions were vague but suggested she should act differently around Ethan during the day, maybe appear distracted or indifferent, just to see if he noticed and whether his reaction matched Chloe's expectations. And Ethan's heart tightened, a strange combination of hurt and confusion washing over him, because he couldn't imagine Lily doing anything to make him doubt her, yet he could feel the subtle shift in her energy, the way she avoided his gaze at times, the small hesitations in her voice, and he wondered if he would be able to trust his own instincts throughout the day, if he would question every word, every look, every gesture, and that thought alone made him nervous, more than he wanted to admit, because love, real love, wasn't supposed to be a puzzle or a game, and yet here it was, imposed by someone who had no right to interfere, and Ethan's mind raced with scenarios, trying to predict how the day would unfold, imagining Lily acting distant, perhaps laughing nervously at something he didn't understand, maybe even talking to other people in ways that Chloe might have suggested, and he hated the thought of doubting her, but the fear of being manipulated from the outside was strong, gnawing at him quietly, threatening to overshadow the warmth he had been feeling when he woke up that morning, and Lily, noticing his furrowed brow, tried to reassure him, saying she would never let a game come between them, that she loved him more than anything, but the words were wrapped in uncertainty, as if she was trying to convince both him and herself, and Ethan felt a mixture of relief and lingering worry, because words alone couldn't erase the tension, the unease planted by someone else's interference, and he realized that Valentine's Day, which he had imagined as perfect and romantic, was suddenly layered with complexity and unspoken anxiety. And as the morning passed, they moved through small routines, making coffee, laughing softly at old inside jokes, Ethan attempting to focus on the sweetness of the day, yet beneath every smile, there was a subtle undercurrent of tension, a delicate dance between love, trust, and the intrusive shadow of Chloe's test, and every glance Ethan stole at Lily made his heart pound with hope and fear simultaneously, hoping that she would be herself, that their connection would remain unbroken, that her eyes would meet his with the same warmth they always had, and Lily, on her part, wrestled with guilt, wanting to be honest but fearing that revealing every detail of Chloe's manipulations might hurt Ethan, and she struggled to balance her loyalty to him with her awkward desire not to betray Chloe, even though Chloe's version of loyalty felt twisted and unfair, and the tension built quietly, like a storm gathering behind the horizon, small signs accumulating. The way Lily lingered over a text message, the slight hesitation when Ethan suggested a walk in the park, the soft sighs she didn't quite notice she was letting out, and Ethan, noticing all of these tiny signals, felt a growing knot of anxiety. A mix of hope that Lily's heart was pure and dread that someone else's influence might cloud it, and as the morning faded into afternoon, the world outside seemed almost irrelevant compared to the delicate, fragile emotional landscape they were navigating together, a landscape Ethan wished he could map clearly, a path without shadows or tests, a place where love was enough and no one else's opinion mattered, and yet here they were, two hearts intertwined but shadowed by doubt, trying to find solid ground on a day that should have been nothing but simple joy. And as Ethan watched Lily glance at her phone one last time before putting it down, he felt the first real pang of worry that would haunt him through the rest of the day, a quiet, persistent tension that whispered, this Valentine's Day was going to be unlike any other, and nothing would feel normal until they faced the truth together. The morning had already left a strange weight on Ethan and Lily, and as the day moved forward, the subtle tension only grew, because Lily knew she had to face Chloe and the strange loyalty test that had been thrust upon her, and even though she tried to convince herself it was just a silly game, every step she took toward meeting Chloe felt heavy with guilt, fear, and anticipation, and when she arrived at Chloe's apartment, the moment she stepped inside, she was met with an over-the-top smile that didn't quite reach Chloe's eyes, a smile that seemed friendly but carried an unspoken challenge, and Chloe immediately launched into instructions, telling Lily that today she needed to act differently around Ethan, not in a way that was mean or hurtful, but in a subtle way that would make him wonder, a way that tested his attention, his care, his patience, and Lily felt her stomach twist, realizing that Chloe's idea of testing love was actually manipulating emotions, creating unnecessary tension, and yet, Chloe insisted it was all in good fun, a harmless way to confirm the depth of Ethan's feelings, and Lily nodded, feeling trapped between her loyalty to Chloe as a friend and her love for Ethan as a partner, trying to find a way to navigate both worlds without betraying either, and as she left Chloe's apartment, she couldn't shake the instructions from her mind, the words echoing like a mantra she didn't want to follow, but felt pressured to, and Ethan, meanwhile, was blissfully unaware of the exact nature of the plan, though he could feel the subtle shift in Lily's behavior, the way she hesitated when he tried to suggest lunch together, the soft distraction in her eyes, and the almost imperceptible tension in her voice, small signals that made his heart beat faster with a mix of curiosity and anxiety, because he trusted her completely, yet couldn't ignore that something had changed, and he spent the morning trying to focus on the positive, making small gestures, brewing coffee, sending a quick thinking of you message, and arranging little surprises he had planned for the day, but each time Lily smiled faintly or glanced nervously at her phone, a ripple of doubt snuck into his thoughts, a whisper reminding him that something was amiss, and he hated that feeling, because he knew Lily loved him, but the unknown influence of someone else created a fog over what should have been a simple, loving day. And Lily, walking home after a brief stop at Chloe's for a chat, felt her mind spinning, trying to balance Chloe's expectations with her own conscience, knowing that acting indifferent or distracted toward Ethan would feel unnatural, almost wrong, yet fearing Chloe's judgment if she refused to participate, and every step she took made her heart pound harder, each beat reminding her that love shouldn't be measured by games, that trust wasn't something to be challenged artificially, but still. The pressure lingered, and she couldn't easily shake it off, and when she arrived home, Ethan was waiting, holding a small bouquet of flowers he had picked from a corner shop earlier, his face lighting up when he saw her, and in that moment, a wave of relief mixed with anxiety washed over Lily, because she wanted to smile and be completely herself, but Chloe's instructions kept whispering in her mind, and Ethan noticed a flicker of hesitation in her eyes, a subtle distance in her smile, and it hit him immediately, a mix of concern and confusion flooding his chest, because everything in him screamed that she hadn't changed, that this wasn't her, yet he couldn't ignore the small signals his instincts were picking up, and the tension between them grew quietly, a gentle storm threatening to disrupt the calm he had been expecting, and he decided to give her space, to let her speak if she wanted, while internally trying to decipher the puzzle he didn't yet understand. While Lily wandered to the kitchen, fidgeting with a tea towel, thinking that maybe she could carry out Chloe's plan in a subtle way, but every time she looked at Ethan, her resolve crumbled, because the thought of making him doubt her love, even for a moment, felt unbearable, and she realized that Chloe's idea of a loyalty test was cruel, unnecessary, and painful, and yet, trapped in social pressure, she hesitated to speak up immediately, weighing every word she might say against Chloe's manipulations, and Ethan, sensing her inner conflict, tried to break the silence with gentle questions, soft suggestions to go for a walk, to talk about anything but tension, anything that could help lighten the day, and Lily, heart pounding, followed him reluctantly, knowing that the outside world might judge her differently, that Chloe's manipulations weren't fair, but also knowing that her love for Ethan was true and pure, and that even participating in the test out of fear didn't change what she felt inside, and as they walked through the city streets, holding hands, yet with a subtle distance between them, the sunlight casting long shadows over their path, Ethan couldn't help but notice the way Lily's smile wavered, the small pause in her step, the flicker of doubt in her eyes, and he silently hoped she would reveal the truth before the day went any further, before the outside pressure caused cracks in the foundation they had built together, and Lily, glancing at him, felt an ache in her chest, knowing that every step she took under Chloe's instructions was testing not her love for Ethan, which was undeniable, but the strength of their trust, the resilience of a bond she didn't want to break, and yet, the test loomed over them, a shadow that turned small gestures into moments of internal tension, laughter into a careful calculation, and simple touches into electric signals loaded with unspoken meaning, and they both felt the weight of an invisible observer, Chloe's presence hovering in their minds, creating emotional turbulence, and Ethan, trying to remain calm, focused on small joys, her laugh at a street performer, the warmth of her hand in his, the smell of flowers she had tucked into her bag, but still, the thought of a test, something contrived to measure devotion, gnawed quietly, a persistent whisper, because no matter how small, the idea that someone else was influencing her actions created a tension that love alone could not immediately erase, and Lily, feeling torn between honesty and loyalty to a friend, began to realize that no test, no matter how cleverly disguised, could define her commitment, that love was deeper than a day's behavior, that Ethan's patience and understanding mattered more than any suggestion Chloe could offer, and yet the day pressed forward with soft, mounting drama, subtle yet insistent, every glance, every touch, every pause filled with meaning, as they navigated the delicate balance of affection and testing, trust and manipulation, love and external pressure, and by late afternoon, the quiet tension had transformed into an emotional storm, ready to break, because both Ethan and Lily understood, even if silently, that the day had shifted from ordinary romance to a challenge of the heart, an examination of fidelity and devotion that neither had asked for, yet both felt the consequences of in every small gesture and every word left unspoken. And as they returned home, the city lights beginning to twinkle, casting warm reflections on the windows, Ethan and Lily shared a moment of silent understanding, a fragile pause in the storm, each aware that what they were facing was not merely Valentine's Day, but a test of the resilience of their love, the authenticity of their feelings, and the courage to confront outside pressures together, knowing that the evening ahead would demand honesty, vulnerability, and the strength to rise above someone else's manipulations, and in that quiet, electric moment, hearts beating in tandem yet weighted with tension, the first act of their emotional journey concluded, leaving them on the cusp of choices that could define the rest of their relationship, a delicate cliffhanger that hung in the air, urging them both to face the truth before it was too late. The late afternoon sun streamed through the living room window as Lily and Ethan sat together, the air heavy with unspoken words, because both of them knew something had shifted but neither wanted to be the first to disturb the fragile calm, and Lily's heart raced, torn between the desire to be honest and the fear of revealing Chloe's manipulations, and Ethan, sensing her hesitation, reached for her hand instinctively, feeling the familiar warmth that had always grounded him, but also noticing the subtle tremor, the small withdrawal, the almost imperceptible distance that spoke louder than any words, and Lily, staring at their intertwined fingers, felt a pang of guilt, knowing that acting even slightly distant under Chloe's instructions had created a tension she had never intended, and she wondered if Ethan would notice, if he would feel betrayed. If the trust they had nurtured over years would falter in these few hours of confusion, and Ethan, watching the slight quiver in her smile, felt an ache in his chest, a mixture of worry and longing, because he wanted nothing more than to embrace her, to reassure her, to remind her that loyalty wasn't something that could be tested by outside forces, and yet, the energy between them had shifted, charged with a silent question neither wanted to voice, and Lily's mind raced back to Chloe's apartment earlier that day, recalling every suggestion Chloe had made, the way she had framed the loyalty test as a game to prove commitment, and the casual cruelty in her friend's insistence that Lily act differently around Ethan, as if love could be measured by small acts of indifference, and Lily felt anger rise in her, directed at Chloe, at herself for being caught in the middle, at the unfairness of the situation, and Ethan, noticing the tightness in her shoulders and the way her eyes flickered away from his gaze, felt both concern and an almost physical ache, because he knew she loved him, yet he couldn't ignore the subtle signs that something was troubling her, and as the room grew quiet, Lily finally spoke, her voice soft, almost trembling, admitting that Chloe had pressured her, that she had been unsure of how to handle the situation, and Ethan, taking a deep breath, felt a mix of relief and lingering anxiety, because he had sensed her tension but now understood the source, and he gently reminded her that he didn't need a test, that he trusted her heart completely, that their love was not measured by games or challenges, and Lily, hearing the sincerity in his voice, felt a wave of emotion that made her chest tighten, a mixture of relief, love, and lingering guilt for having allowed Chloe's manipulations to cloud her behavior, and Ethan, sensing her inner conflict, drew her close, letting her rest her head on his shoulder, feeling the familiar rhythm of her heartbeat against his, the tangible proof of the love that had brought them together, and in that embrace, Lily realized that love was stronger than outside influence, stronger than doubts planted by friends or fears born from uncertainty, and yet, even in that moment, she felt the subtle tension of what had almost gone wrong, a reminder that trust, once challenged, required care, attention, and honesty to restore fully, and Ethan, feeling the warmth of her presence, whispered that Valentine's Day was meant to celebrate them, not tests or games, and Lily, holding his hand tightly, nodded, determined to leave Chloe's manipulations behind and focus on the love they had built, and as they moved toward the kitchen to prepare a simple dinner together, the city outside bathed in golden light, Ethan suggested they take a walk afterward, to breathe, to reconnect with the world beyond confusion, and Lily agreed, feeling a mix of anticipation and nervous excitement, because even after the tension, even after the strain, she knew that moments like these, small, simple, heartfelt, were what truly defined their relationship, and as they walked through the quiet streets, side by side, hands brushing, hearts in sync yet still carrying the memory of earlier turmoil, Ethan couldn't help but glance at her, marveling at her resilience, at the way she balanced honesty, love, and friendship with quiet strength, and Lily, noticing his gaze, felt her heart swell with affection, realizing that the day's challenges had revealed not weaknesses, but the depth of their bond, the capacity to weather outside pressures and emerge closer than before, and as they reached a small park, the evening sky painted in shades of pink and gold, they paused, leaning against a railing, sharing soft laughter at small, private jokes, yet beneath the laughter lingered the quiet echo of Chloe's influence, a reminder that love sometimes faced unnecessary obstacles, and Lily, taking a deep breath, decided she would confront Chloe soon, to set boundaries, to protect what mattered most, and Ethan, sensing the resolve in her posture, felt a surge of admiration and love, because he knew she was not only courageous but deeply committed, and as they sat on a bench, watching the first stars appear, Ethan turned to her and spoke quietly, telling her that the challenges of the day had shown him even more why he loved her, because her heart had remained true despite confusion, despite pressure, despite the subtle manipulations meant to test their bond, and Lily, feeling tears prick her eyes, smiled, realizing that love was not a matter of proving loyalty to anyone else, but nurturing the connection between two hearts willing to face life together. And as the evening deepened, their hands clasped tightly, their shoulders touching, they shared a quiet, intimate conversation about hopes, dreams, and fears, laying bare emotions that had been shadowed earlier in the day. And Ethan, listening to her speak, felt gratitude for the honesty, for the vulnerability, for the courage it took to navigate the day with integrity. And Lily, seeing his attentive gaze, felt her heart open further, knowing that they were aligned in purpose and feeling, that no loyalty test, no friends' manipulations, could diminish what they had built. And as night fell and the city lights twinkled around them, they returned home, walking slowly, savoring each step, each brush of fingers, each shared breath, aware that the day's trials had tested their emotional resilience, but also strengthened their bond in ways neither could have predicted. And Lily, leaning her head on Ethan's shoulder once more, whispered a soft promise that she would always be honest, always be present, always fight for their love, while Ethan held her close, whispering that he would do the same. And in that quiet, charged space, they both understood that Valentine's Day, with all its unexpected trials, had become a testament to the depth of their connection, a story of love that endured challenges, navigated uncertainty, and emerged stronger. And as they entered their apartment, hearts full yet still tender from the day's emotional roller coaster, they shared a final, lingering embrace, a quiet recognition that together they could face anything, that tests could come and go, but love, when nurtured with trust, patience, and honesty, would remain, unshaken and beautiful. And as they parted reluctantly for a moment to prepare a late evening cup of tea, a small smile exchanged between them carried the weight of understanding, forgiveness, and renewed commitment, a soft, hopeful bridge from the day's tension to the promise of calm, warmth, and emotional intimacy that awaited them, leaving the story poised for the next chapter, where love's resilience would continue to shine, unbroken, unshakable, and ready to face whatever tomorrow might bring. The night had settled softly over the city, casting a gentle glow through the apartment windows, and Ethan and Lily found themselves sitting close on the couch, the tension of the day slowly giving way to a quiet intimacy, yet both hearts still carried the subtle residue of earlier confusion, a delicate reminder that Chloe's manipulations had tested their bond more than either had expected. And Lily, feeling the weight of honesty pressing gently on her chest, decided it was time to speak fully, to let Ethan understand everything without fear or hesitation. So she took a deep breath and began to explain Chloe's loyalty test in detail, recounting the messages, the instructions, and the pressure she had felt to act differently. And Ethan listened intently, absorbing every word, his expression soft but serious, because while he had sensed her distance and subtle hesitation throughout the day, now hearing the truth clarified everything, made the shadows in his mind disappear, and replaced worry with relief. And as Lily's voice wavered, confessing the small moments she had faltered under the strain of external pressure, Ethan reached for her hand, feeling the warmth, the pulse of sincerity, the undeniable proof that her heart had never wavered in love. And he gently reassured her that no test, no manipulation, no outside opinion could ever define their relationship, that love was not about proving loyalty in games, but about trust, understanding, and shared commitment. And Lily, hearing the conviction in his voice, felt a rush of emotion so strong that tears prickled her eyes, a mixture of relief, gratitude, and deep affection for the man who had always seen her true heart. And in that moment, the apartment seemed to shrink to just the two of them, a safe haven where no one else could interfere, no one else could dictate how they should feel, and the world outside could wait, because what mattered most was the bond they had fought to preserve, the connection that had remained strong despite confusion, manipulation, and the invisible tension that had shadowed the day. And Ethan, sensing Lily's vulnerability, pulled her closer, their foreheads touching, breaths mingling, hearts beating in a rhythm that spoke of mutual understanding. And in the warmth of that embrace, Lily realized how deeply she loved him, not just in quiet moments of joy, but in the trials of uncertainty, when love needed to be proven not to anyone else, but to themselves, through honesty, patience, and resilience. And as the evening unfolded, they talked for hours, sharing fears, laughter, and dreams, reconnecting in a way that felt both comforting and exhilarating, because they were reminded that relationships required more than simple affection. They required courage to face truth, the wisdom to navigate challenges, and the willingness to communicate openly, and Lily, feeling a renewed sense of trust, promised herself to confront Chloe gently but firmly the next day, to set boundaries and protect the love that mattered most, while Ethan, sensing her resolve, felt pride and admiration, knowing she was not only brave but deeply committed to their shared future, and as they moved toward a quiet dinner, prepared together with laughter and small, tender touches, the lingering tension of the day faded further, replaced by the gentle glow of intimacy, the comfort of familiarity, and the thrill of emotional closeness, and every glance between them carried unspoken affirmations, every brush of fingers a soft reminder that love could endure pressure, misunderstanding, and external interference, because what mattered most was the honesty they nurtured, the trust they rebuilt, and the love they protected, and after dinner, they settled near the window with warm mugs in hand, the city lights twinkling like a quiet celebration of resilience, and Ethan, looking into Lily's eyes, whispered softly that the trials of the day had shown him even more why he loved her, because her heart had remained pure, her loyalty unwavering, and her courage remarkable, and Lily, feeling tears of gratitude and affection stream down her cheeks, leaned into him, her voice barely above a whisper, promising that she would never let outside pressure dictate her feelings or actions, that she would always prioritize honesty and their bond above all else, and in that quiet, golden moment, Ethan felt a surge of love so profound that words seemed inadequate, but he spoke anyway, assuring her that no loyalty test, no friend's misguided judgment, could ever shake what they had built together, and Lily, hearing the conviction in his tone, felt a sense of peace and joy that she hadn't experienced all day, a deep understanding that love, when nurtured with care, could overcome confusion, doubt, and even manipulation, and as the night deepened, they moved together to the balcony, the cool air brushing their faces, the city sounds soft in the background, and they held each other, shoulders touching, hands clasped, hearts aligned, and Ethan whispered small dreams for the future, of trips they would take, moments of quiet joy, shared victories, and small daily rituals that would continue to build their life together, while Lily shared her own visions of laughter, support, and love that would remain steadfast through all challenges, and in those exchanges, the last remnants of the day's tension melted away, replaced by a warmth that was steady, comforting, and thrilling all at once, and Lily, leaning her head against Ethan's chest, felt the steady beat of his heart and realized that tests, challenges, and manipulations were fleeting, but the bond they shared was enduring, growing stronger with each moment of honesty and mutual support, and Ethan, holding her close, whispered that no matter what external pressures came their way, they would face them together, side by side, hearts open, and minds aligned, and Lily, feeling the depth of his words, felt tears of happiness and relief slide down her cheeks, because she knew that love had been tested and had passed, that trust had been questioned and had been reaffirmed, and that together, they could navigate anything life presented. And as they sat together under the night sky, the stars twinkling faintly above, they shared quiet laughter, soft words of affection, and gentle promises that spoke louder than any grand gestures, because the small, sincere, intimate moments were what truly defined their connection, and the glow of their love illuminated the room, a warm, comforting light that made everything else fade away, leaving only the two of them, hearts beating in tandem, hands intertwined, souls aligned. And in that magical, serene night, Lily and Ethan understood something profound, that love, when nurtured with honesty, patience, courage, and unwavering trust, could overcome any challenge, endure any manipulation, and shine brighter than any obstacle. And as they finally leaned back, resting against each other, the city quiet around them, the air soft with possibility, they felt a renewed sense of unity, a shared understanding that their Valentine's Day, though tested by confusion and external pressures, had ultimately strengthened the bond they cherished, and Lily whispered softly, a contented smile on her lips, that no matter what Chloe or anyone else thought, their love was unshakable, true, and theirs alone, and Ethan, smiling back, pressed a gentle kiss to her forehead, feeling in that moment a perfect blend of joy, relief, and profound affection, knowing that the day's trials had not weakened them, but had revealed the depth of their love, their commitment, and their unwavering ability to face life together, and as they finally settled under a soft blanket, the night wrapping around them like a comforting embrace, they held each other quietly, hearts full, emotions raw yet tender, and understood that the story of their love, tested yet triumphant, would continue to grow, stronger and more beautiful with each passing day, and that no loyalty test, no outside interference, could ever define what they had built together, a love that was resilient, enduring, and utterly theirs, a perfect ending to a Valentine's Day that had begun with uncertainty but concluded in the warmth, truth, and triumph of hearts fully aligned.